occurred in my childhood home during Thanksgiving. My husband and my aunt got lost. In the attic, I caught them together at Thanksgiving, trapped in the attic with candles, wine, and no shame. What would you have done? Would you have screamed? Would you have run? Or would you have done what I did? Stood there, paralyzed, watching the flickering candlelight dance across their faces, illuminating the betrayal that was about to shatter my entire world? The drive back to Louisville always felt longer than it actually was. 300 miles, give or take, stretched into an eternity when all I could think about was the saccharine sweetness of family, the forced smiles, the polite conversations masking years of buried resentments. Thanksgiving. The year was 2025. A year that promised so much. A year that ultimately delivered a dose of reality I wasn't prepared for. The old Victorian house, my childhood home, loomed large as we pulled into the driveway. It was the kind of house that whispered secrets, its peeling paint a testament to years of neglect, its gabled roof casting long, ominous shadows. My grandmother, bless her heart, had insisted on keeping it, even as the neighborhood gentrified around it, the trendy boutiques and overpriced coffee shops encroaching on its faded glory. Rob, my husband, squeezed my hand, a reassuring gesture that felt hollow. "Home, sweet home," he said, his voice laced with an enthusiasm that didn't quite reach his eyes. He never truly understood my attachment to this place, to the memories etched into its very foundation. He saw only the dust, the creaking floors, the outdated kitchen. I saw my past, my family, my roots. My mother, bless her controlling heart, greeted us at the door with a whirlwind of hugs and pointed remarks about my weight. "You're looking thin, darling. Are you eating enough?" She didn't wait for an answer, of course, launching into a detailed itinerary of the us. My Aunt Cynthia arrived an hour later, radiating an effortless charm that always made me feel slightly inadequate. She was everything my mother wasn't: cool, collected, and undeniably glamorous. At 56, she still managed to turn heads, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her designer clothes impeccably tailored. I always suspected she'd had work done, but I could never quite put my finger on what. "Darling," she exclaimed, enveloping me in a cloud of expensive perfume. "It's so good to see you. And Rob, you're looking handsome as ever." She gave him a lingering hug that made me feel a prickle of unease. Was it just me, or was there a little too much warmth in her greeting? The afternoon unfolded in a predictable rhythm. Forced smiles, strained conversations, and the constant clatter of dishes. My grandmother, frail but still sharp as a tack, held court in the living room, dispensing wisdom and veiled insults in equal measure. My mother hovered, orchestrating the entire performance with a manic energy. Rob, as always, retreated into a corner, engaging in polite small talk with my Uncle David, a man whose passions lay solely in golf and tax law. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dining room, my grandmother announced, "Cynthia, darling, would you be a dear and fetch the old photo albums from the attic? I want to show everyone how adorable I was as a young woman." Cynthia, without missing a beat, replied, "Of course, Mother. Rob, why don't you come with me? You're so much taller, you can reach the boxes on the top shelf." And that's when it happened. That little seed of doubt, that tiny whisper of suspicion, began to take root. Why Rob? Why not my Uncle David? Why not me? I was perfectly capable of climbing a stepladder. I watched them disappear up the narrow staircase that led to the attic, their laughter echoing faintly in the air. A wave of unease washed over me, a feeling I couldn't quite explain. Was it jealousy? Paranoia? Or was it something more? Something I couldn't quite articulate? I tried to shake it off, to chalk it up to holiday stress and a general lack of sleep. But the feeling persisted, gnawing at me, refusing to be ignored. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 15 minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. "I'll go help them," I announced, my voice sounding surprisingly calm, even to my own ears. My mother looked up, her eyebrows raised in surprise. Help them? They're just getting photo albums, darling. What could possibly go wrong? I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. Just thought I'd lend a hand. Speed things up. I made my way to the staircase, my heart pounding in my chest. Each step creaked ominously, as if warning me to turn back, to leave well enough alone. But I couldn't. I had to know. I had to see for myself. The attic door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out into the hallway. I hesitated for a moment, my hand trembling on the doorknob. What was I about to walk into? What secrets lay hidden in that dusty, forgotten space? I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The sight that greeted me made my blood run cold. There they were, Rob and Cynthia, huddled together in the center of the room, surrounded by flickering candlelight. A bottle of wine sat on a nearby trunk, 2 glasses half empty. They weren't looking at photo albums. They were looking at each other. And the look in their eyes, it was unmistakable. What would you do if you were me? Would you scream? Would you confront them? Would you demand an explanation? I did none of those things. I simply stood there, frozen in the doorway, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was seeing. The air hung thick with unspoken words, with the weight of betrayal. The candlelight cast dancing shadows on their faces, illuminating the guilt, the shame, the something else, something I couldn't quite decipher. Rob was the first to notice me. His eyes widened in horror, his face flushing crimson. What are you doing here?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Cynthia, ever the picture of composure, simply raised an eyebrow. "Darling," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You startled us. We were just discussing family matters." Family matters? Was that what they were calling it? A clandestine rendezvous in a dusty attic, surrounded by candles and wine. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to break something. I was paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. "I thought you were getting photo albums," I managed to say, my voice trembling. Rob shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. But then we started talking about grandmother's health." "Grandmother's health? Was that the best they could come up with?" Cynthia stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. Her touch felt like ice. "Darling, don't be ridiculous. We were just having a conversation. There's nothing to worry about." But there was something to worry about. I could feel it in the air, in the way they were avoiding my gaze, in the subtle tension that crackled between them. "I'm going downstairs," I said, my voice cold and distant. "Dinner's almost ready." I turned and fled, leaving them alone in the attic, their secrets hanging in the air like a shroud. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I went through the motions, smiling, nodding, making polite conversation. But inside, I was a mess. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I had seen. Was I overreacting? Was I reading too much into a simple conversation? Or was there something more going on? Something I couldn't ignore? After dinner, as everyone was milling about, I noticed Cynthia slip away. I followed her, my heart pounding in my chest. She headed towards my grandmother's study, a room that was usually off limits to everyone but my grandmother herself. I crept closer, peering through the crack in the door. I could see Cynthia rummaging through my grandmother's desk, her movements frantic and hurried. What was she looking for? What secrets was she trying to uncover? Suddenly she stopped, her eyes fixed on something in her hand. I strained to see what it was. It looked like a document, a legal document. She carefully folded it and slipped it into her purse. Then, just as quickly as she had entered, she left the room, disappearing back into the crowd. I waited a few moments, catching my breath, before entering the study myself. I went straight to my grandmother's desk, searching for any sign of what Cynthia had taken. After a few minutes of frantic searching, I found it. Or rather, I found the space where it had been. A file labeled Estate Planning was now empty, its contents missing. My blood ran cold. What was Cynthia planning? What was she trying to do? I decided to confront her. I found her in the living room, chatting with Rob. They both looked up as I approached, their faces betraying a hint of nervousness. "Cynthia," I said, my voice tight with anger. "Can I talk to you for a moment? Alone?" She raised an eyebrow, her expression cool and unreadable. "Of course, darling. What's on your mind?" I led her to the hallway, away from the prying eyes of the rest of the family. "I saw you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I saw you in grandmother's study. I know you took something." Her eyes widened in feigned innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about, darling." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I saw you. You took a document from the estate planning file." She hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "All right, fine. I took it, but it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's a medical report regarding grandmother's mental capacity." "A medical report? What did that have to do with anything?" "Why would you take that?" I asked, my voice filled with suspicion. She looked down, avoiding my gaze. "Because I'm worried about grandmother. She's been acting strangely lately. I think she might be losing her mind." "And you think a medical report is going to help?" I asked, incredulous. "It might," she said, her voice barely audible. "If it shows that she's not competent, then we can take steps to protect her." Protect her? Or protect yourself? I didn't believe her for a second. I knew there was something more to it, something she wasn't telling me. "I want to see it," I said, my voice firm. "I want to see this medical report." She hesitated, then reluctantly reached into her purse and pulled out the document. She handed it to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and fear. I opened the report and began to read. It was a letter from her doctor determining that she was unfit to make legal decisions. The letter was dated 6 months ago. 6 months. Cynthia had been planning this for months. This is a forgery," I stammered, my voice shaking with rage. "You forged this, didn't you?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, her face pale and drawn. "You're trying to take advantage of grandmother," I said, my voice trembling. "You're trying to steal her house." Tears welled up in my eyes. How could she do this? How could she betray our family like this? "I'm going to tell everyone," I said, my voice rising. "I'm going to expose you for what you are." She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Don't do that," she pleaded. "Please don't do that. You'll ruin everything." "You've already ruined everything," I said, my voice filled with contempt. I wrenched my arm away from her and stormed off, determined to tell everyone the truth. But as I made my way back to the living room, I hesitated. What would telling everyone accomplish? It would tear the family apart. It would cause endless pain and suffering. Was that what I really wanted? I stopped in my tracks, my mind racing. What should I do? Should I expose Cynthia for what she was? Or should I protect the family, even if it meant letting her get away with her scheme? What would you do if you were me? I knew I couldn't let her get away with it, but I also knew I couldn't bear to see my family torn apart. There had to be another way. That night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, an idea began to form in my mind. A risky idea, a dangerous idea, but an idea that might just work. I would confront Cynthia, but not with anger and accusations. I would confront her with reason and compassion. I would try to appeal to her better nature, to remind her of the values we were raised on, to convince her to do the right thing. It was a long shot, I knew, but it was the only hope I had. "Cynthia," I said, my voice calm but firm, "can we talk?" She looked up, her eyes wary. "About what?" "About what happened yesterday," I said. "About the medical report. About everything." She sighed and set down her coffee cup. "All right," she said. "Let's talk." We sat down at the kitchen table, the silence hanging heavy between us. "Why, Cynthia?" I asked, my voice filled with genuine curiosity. "Why did you do it? Why did you try to steal grandmother's house?" She hesitated for a moment, then began to speak, her voice low and trembling. She told me about her financial struggles, about the debts she had accumulated over the years, about the pressure she felt to maintain her lifestyle. She told me about her fear of ending up alone and destitute, about her desperate desire to secure her future. As she spoke, I began to see things from her perspective. I began to understand the desperation that had driven her to commit such a terrible act. I still didn't condone what she had done, but I could at least understand it. When she finished speaking, I reached across the table and took her hand. "I know you're struggling, Cynthia," I said, "but this isn't the answer. Stealing grandmother's house isn't going to solve your problems. It's only going to make things worse." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she said. "I know you're right." "Then do the right thing," I said. "Give the medical report back. Tell grandmother the truth." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I will," and she did. Later that day, she confessed everything to my grandmother, who, to my surprise, took it remarkably well. Grandmother, it turned out, had known all along that Cynthia was struggling. She had even suspected that she was up to something. But she had been waiting for her to confess, hoping that she would eventually come to her senses. In the end, Cynthia didn't get away with it, but she also wasn't publicly shamed or ostracized. She faced the consequences of her actions, but she was also given a chance to redeem herself. And that, I realized, was the best outcome I could have hoped for. I'll never forget that Thanksgiving. It was a painful, unsettling experience, but it taught me a valuable lesson about family, about betrayal, and about the power of forgiveness. Could you have forgiven them? I hope so. Forgiveness is a gift, not just to others, but to yourself. I don't talk to Rob anymore. Some things are unforgivable. I found a purpose in helping others in my position to trust themselves and their intuition. It's hard to recover from an experience like that, but not impossible. We all have a chance to start over. What would you choose to do? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. The air in the house still felt heavy, even after Cynthia's confession. It was like a storm had passed, leaving behind a residue of broken trust and unspoken resentments. I found myself avoiding Rob, unable to look him in the eye without feeling a surge of anger and disappointment. He tried to talk to me, of course, but I brushed him off, telling him I needed space. I did need space. Space to process everything that had happened. Space to decide what to do. I wandered outside, seeking refuge in the overgrown garden. The roses, once vibrant and fragrant, were now withered and brown, their petals scattered across the neglected soil. It was a perfect metaphor for my life at that moment. I sat on a rusty wrought iron bench, staring blankly at the setting sun. The sky was ablaze with color, a fiery orange that slowly faded into a deep, melancholic purple. It was beautiful, but I couldn't appreciate it. All I could think about was the betrayal, the lies, the broken promises. What would you do? Could you move on? Could you ever look at your husband the same way again? It was my mother and Cynthia, their voices rising and falling in a familiar yet unsettling rhythm. I crept downstairs, drawn to the conflict like a moth to a flame. They were in the kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and half-eaten leftovers. "I can't believe you did that," my mother was saying, her voice dripping with disdain. "I always knew you were selfish, but I never thought you were capable of something like this." Cynthia stood her ground, her expression defiant. "I did what I had to do," she said. "I was desperate." "Desperate," my mother scoffed. "That's no excuse for trying to take advantage of your own mother." "I wasn't trying to take advantage of her," Cynthia retorted. "I was trying to protect her." "Protect her," my mother repeated, her voice filled with disbelief. "From what? From yourself?" I stepped into the kitchen, interrupting their argument. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. My mother turned to me, her eyes blazing with anger. "Your aunt is a thief," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "She tried to steal your grandmother's house." I nodded, already knowing what she was going to say. "I know," I said. "I already know." My mother's face softened slightly. "You do?" she asked. "How?" I explained what I had seen in the attic, what Cynthia had told me about the medical report. My mother listened in silence, her expression growing more and more grim. When I finished, she sighed and shook her head. "I always knew there was something off about her," she said. "She always seemed so perfect. But I guess you can never really know someone, can you?" "No, you can't. I learned that the hard way." Later that day, I decided to take a walk. I needed to clear my head to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the house. I wandered through the neighborhood, past the trendy boutiques and overpriced coffee shops, trying to find some sense of peace, but it was no use. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of the betrayal, of the lies, of the broken promises. I ended up at a small park on the edge of town. It was a quiet, secluded place, far removed from the hustle and bustle of city life. I sat on a swing, gently swaying back and forth, trying to recapture the feeling of carefree innocence I had known as a child. But it was impossible. The weight of the present was too heavy, too overwhelming. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the world around me. But even in the darkness, I couldn't escape the memories, the doubts, the fears. What would you do? Would you run away? Would you try to start over? Or would you stay and fight for what you believe in? As the sun began to set, I noticed a figure approaching me. It was Rob. He walked slowly, his head down, his expression contrite. I braced myself for another apology, another attempt to explain his actions. But this time, he didn't say anything. He simply sat down on the swing. We sat there for a long time, side by side, not speaking, not touching. The only sound was the gentle creaking of the swings and the rustling of the leaves in the trees. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you." I didn't respond. I just kept swinging, my eyes fixed on the horizon. "I know I messed up," he continued. "I know I betrayed your trust, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I love you, and I'll do whatever it takes to win back your trust." I stopped swinging and turned to face him. "Do you?" I asked, my voice cold and distant,